Hey, good morning, team, and welcome to week 3 of organizational behavior. So, a couple of things before we start, right? If you notice on the weekly units, I put in the dates that they are for the week that we are on. Some people have had some confusion as what week we're on. Currently, this is week 3, 19 March. Look at the weekly units. That is, it has the dates on it. So hopefully we have no confusion on that. Okay, because I know like the first assignment on week 1, which actually ended up being due on week 2, uh, it caused some confusion. But anyways, hopefully that will help clarify where we are. This week, Census Day is Tuesday. I have to put in, the attendance report, and if you have not contributed, you will be marked absent and be removed. I saw, there are some people that are in danger. Well, after the first soft census day, uh, people started contributing. So, anyways, uh, if you have not received an email from me, then you are okay. Let's leave it at that. Okay, so what are we doing this week? This week is personality and biases. And I already talked a little bit about disc behavioral theory with you in a video, and I hope you got a chance to see that. And you got to see how you exhibit your behaviors, right? Now, behaviors are different than personality, right? Because behaviors are how we adapt to an environment and how we show our personality. A personality, according to Carl Jung, this is our innate preferences that we are born with. We can exhibit it in different ways, but we have a preference that we want to go to. So, for instance, if you are introverted or extroverted, right? I'm a very introverted person. I could probably tell you the amount of people I talk to during the day outside of the classroom on one hand, right? I, I'm an introverted person. Most of your teachers actually are introverts because they start off as researchers, as readers, as academics, and they are thrusted into a teaching role. So therefore, they have to adapt to their environment and the way they express themselves in the classroom doesn't mean who they are personally. So, for instance, you see, I'm a very expressive, see with my hands, very expressive type person, but how I recharge is I'm an introvert. So, how does this all apply to organizational behavior? Well, I'm challenging you, right? Because I put a little voiceover PowerPoint on Myers Briggs and a great video from Stephen Colbert understanding who his Myers Briggs is. But I challenge you to look around your organization and pick up these personality traits with your coworkers. So, for instance, if you have a coworker who's hard to read their emotions, right? And you ask them a question. Let's say, hey, I don't know, how did the budget go this week for the company? And this is the response you get. It's on par. The budget's on par with last week. That person might be a very introverted person. But if you ask the question to an extroverted style person, and say, hey, how was the budget this week for the company? Oh, well, the budget this week, yeah, it's pretty good. It's about par with last week, a little bit. Well, that person is thinking while they're talking. So that's a trait of an extroverted person. Somebody that's very structured, right? A J type personality. God forbid you move something on their workplace. They might be very structured and don't move anything, right? Somebody that's a perceiver that's not very structured, they may have stuff all over their desk, may be hard. They don't do good with schedules. They're all late for meetings. They like to get work done at the last minute. A structured type person loves the milestones for assignments. Oh, we got to be done on this time, this time, this time we have a check in. That's how they work. So look for these traits in people, the thinking and feeling perspective, right? Who is a pure thinker that's like, hey, logic, you did this is the outcome. Or a feeler, well, this person has a good attitude, and so we're going to look the other way, or maybe we can do something else. That's a feeling type. Sensory and intuition. I'm an intuitive, so sometimes it's really hard for me to see the details because I'm always looking at some big picture strategy thing, but you know, I don't see the details. Where somebody that is an S is very attentive to the details, but has trouble sometimes seeing the big picture. So, for instance, me as a teacher, I will go in and just start talking, much like I am now, with a couple of scribbled notes. Here's the big picture. But then I'll forget that, oh, my students need to have pens and stuff like that. Oh, I don't know. I don't pay attention to the details, right? An intuitive like myself, I'll pick up a book, skim through. Okay, I got the idea. I got it. Let's go. Now, a sensory type person, no, read every word, every page. That's the way, we take in information. So it's a little different. So there's a bunch of PowerPoints out there on the weekly units. I did a voiceover PowerPoint. Hopefully that will help with the MBTI. The only assignment this week is to write down your MBTI profile. There's a discussion board where you're going to discuss your MBTI profile and these traits with others. And so it's actually a light week this week. You have 2 discussion boards and just that little assignment. So that means turn in your missed assignments. No late discussion boards. Remember, I'm pretty strict about that. But assignments, hand them in if you're missing any, because next week we have a midterm, right? So start thinking. So there's a chapter 6, our other reading in this book, and our discussion board is on biases. And this is one of my favorite topics, more so than ethics and more so than personality. Biases, right? We all have them. Do not think you do not. You do. You have implicit biases, which these are ingrained in us from birth. For instance, bad guys wear black, good guys wear white. This is Star Wars and every rodeo, or I mean, every cowboy western film done here in America. It's not that way globally, but done here in America. And that's ingrained into us if you grew up with that. So think about these biases that we have and that that we bring into the workplace. For instance, an implicit bias, right? I went to a great speech with this woman from Harvard one time, and she was talking about implicit biases. And we're all aware of gender inequality. We're all aware of race and nationality biases that are out there. However, she was saying one of the biggest biases that's out there that we don't recognize is single or married men not in the workplace. Think about that. How many men do you know who are not working? They may be taking care of the kids at home or something like that. But can you relate the word man with laundry or man with diapers? Hmm. What do you think when you hear that guy is not working? You probably think lazy, you know, yeah, or whatever, loser, you know. Yeah, that's a common thought. It's really hard for us to relate man and household activities when in fact his wife could be, I don't know, a lawyer or a doctor and the major breadwinner in the family, and he is staying home to raise the children so they don't have to pay for daycare or their homeschooling or whatever the issue. These are legitimate things. But that's not addressed at all in the workforce. So there's a bias, and I bet you all of us have that bias, and we didn't even think about it until I mentioned it. There's another professor at Goodwin who I was talking to, and he was the chief of police at in Groton, Connecticut. And he was telling me one time, every 6 months they get a statistical report, the police department, on race and nationality and the percentage of people that are pulled over and who gets tickets. And We always focus on African American or black and white, and there is a disparity there. But he said a disparity that doesn't get talked about is a lot of times Asian American and white. He said if an Asian American gets pulled over for a ticket, chances are 100%, almost 100%, that they are going to get a speeding ticket and not a warning. And the reason is culturally, because in a lot of Asian cultures, if you do something wrong, you do not look at authority in the eyes. You put your head down, right? You're like, okay, in a lot of Anglo cultures, what happens? That is almost an admission of guilt. What, you're not going to argue with me about this? About going through the yellow light? You're just going to put your head down? Okay, here's your ticket. You know? So there is a cultural difference. And that's actually a bias. It's not so, it can be a stereotype because we are acting on a bias. But that's a bias, and that is a cultural difference that, is out there. So think about these things in the workplace because we have them, and they affect how we work, and the microaggressions. I know some people don't like that term, but that exists. Microaggressions. Think about this, right? So here it is, Tuesday, and it's Taco Tuesday in the cafeteria, and you're a Hispanic. Let's say you're from Bolivia, and you're working there, and you have a guy that always taps you on the shoulder. He may not mean anything. Hey, it's Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. Come on, you're gonna go have some tacos with us? And this is every Tuesday. And so eventually it gets to the point where you're like, I'm from Bolivia. We don't eat friggin' tacos. Why are you always asking me this? I actually like chicken, you know? So that turns into a microaggression. And we got to address those, right? So they don't turn into a big aggression. So, for instance, if that Taco Tuesday expression, let the person know. Hey, I'm from Bolivia. We don't like tacos. I don't know where you're going with this. I'm not saying it's Hamburger Friday. You go eat hamburgers or something. So these are things to think about. And microaggressions are real. Think about your family, right? We have these little things that each family member does, and if we don't address it, bam, explosion, and everybody's fighting, and next thing you know, you're crying on Christmas, right? So yeah, think about it. Okay, so you have 2 discussion boards this week and only 1 small assignment to tell me what your letters are and to catch up on any missed assignments. There was an assignment for week 1 and for week 2. So catch up on those. And next week we have our midterm and some discussion boards. Okay, so this is Dave. Dave out. Thanks.